Hello and welcome to this ACCA video. If you're studying for the ACCA Strategic Business Leader exam, this video is aimed at you. My name's Sean Purcell and I have years of experience in helping students pass their ACCA exams. In this video, we're going to debrief question 2, and there are other videos in this series which will debrief the remaining questions. The aim of these videos is to give you some practical tips on how you might approach strategic business leader questions so as to gain exam confidence and maximize your success when attempting the real exam. Before we start looking at the question, I'm assuming that you've attempted the question and have a copy of the exam to hand. Question 2 asks us to critically evaluate the contents of a project initiation document and recommend improvements. But before we get involved in the details of the question, there's a set of 6 practical steps that I think we should follow on every strategic business leader question. They are: what role are we being asked to play? What format are we required to write our answer in? Who are we addressing, i.e., who is the audience? What verbs are being used? How many marks are available for this part of the question? And what are the professional skills marks being awarded for? If we take this step before writing any answer plan, we should minimize any chances of making mistakes. So, looking at the question in more detail, we see we're asked to prepare a memo to Oliver Wasonga, who's a junior member of the team, which evaluates the contents and summary of the operational issues in the project initiation document which he's prepared and recommend improvements. Professional skills here are for skepticism. There's 4 marks for that, and there are 14 technical marks. So adopting the approach we adopt on every single strategic business leader question, we ask the following. First of all, who are we? Well, we're Joe, the project manager. What format are we asked to do this in? A memo. Who are we talking to? Oliver, who's a junior member of the team. The verbs are asking us to critically evaluate, so we think about what critically evaluate means. How many marks? 14 technical and 4 professional skills marks. As always, very important to think about time. So from our Over Your Shoulder article, which you'll find on the ACCA website, if we take that advice, we've got 2.5 minutes times 14 marks. It gives me about 35 minutes. The other thing I'm going to do to make sure that my answer is properly controlled is write down the time I start and therefore write down the expected time I should finish. And I really need to strictly stick to that. Looking at the professional skills marks, they are for skepticism here. Again, in your further reading, you would understand what skepticism would focus on. So when we are being skeptical, we would probe, more deeply. We would question the facts, not take them at face value, and we would challenge, what is being said. In the context of the case here, we also need to make sure that we are professional, because the person who's written this project initiation document is a relatively junior member of staff and they're trying their best. So let's have some empathy with them and not be too hard on them. No one asked them to do this, they just did it because no one was there. So we challenge, but maybe we challenge in a nice, non-critical way. I think that would be important here. In terms of what we're looking at, we're really taking all of this from as the Big 4. This gives a project initiation document which is, somewhat incomplete. So you would have looked at this, and then my advice would have been to do a brainstorm of what a good project initiation document would include. So from my technical knowledge, I would know a good project initiation document would look at the purpose of the project, the objectives for the project, the key people involved, stakeholders involved, the assumptions that we have, the constraints, who's the project manager, who's the project sponsor, what are the milestones along the way, And what about our internal and external communications that we are going to do during the lifetime of a project? So that's kind of what I know from my knowledge. I then take that and I think in the context of the project initiation document we have in Exhibit 4, in the context of that, what maybe is missing? The other thing to remember is that the question says contents and summary of operational and recommend improvements. Yeah, so it's important that we tick those boxes. The verb is evaluate. I tend to think of what's good and bad. What's good about the project initiation document we see? Well, it's quite neat and tidy. It does have a Gantt chart. But that's about all I can say that's really good about it. From my brainstorm, does it have a purpose? No, it doesn't. It might maybe include something such as build a safe and efficient road, or objectives stated. Not really. Objectives we'd expect to see would be both financial and non-financial. Who are the people and how are they arranged? You know, who's the team? What's the hierarchy of that team? Nothing on that. Various stakeholders, their responsibilities, no mention. What about financing issues, working capital demands? No mention. Constraints of time and cost? No mention. Who's the project manager? Who's the project sponsor? What is the timetable along which this project's going to flow? No mention of that either. And when are progress meetings, updates, when are they timetabled and when are they going to happen? So from our technical knowledge, we use that as a mind organizer to address the exhibit to see what's missing. The other thing to draw your attention to here is that it did mention operational issues. Yeah. So when we're talking about operational issues, we need to ensure that the marker is clear on what we are saying. So make sure we separate these out. So I need to separate out time constraints. And yes, it's got a Gantt chart, but you know, it's pretty basic and needs to be quite a bit more detailed. There's no real emphasis on what the deadlines are. And then from a cost constraint perspective, well, the budgeted figures in the project initiation document, they're just simply repeated from the exhibits. So we've brought your attention to that. In terms of the marks that we have here, I've done my brainstorm about the points that I maybe can make, but what do I actually need to score to pass? Well, there are 14 technical marks available, so therefore to pass I need to score at least 7. Just to remind you, with regards to marks, many of you will be aware that most of the marking schemes will award up to 2 marks for each developed point on SBL. However, the examining team have also made it clear that to get any marks at all, you must do more than just state some knowledge or a point from the exhibit. Knowledge always needs to be explained in the context of the case, and points from exhibits need to be explained in terms of their relevance to the requirements. This is what the examining team were referring to in the 10 Things to Learn article. So I think it would be risky to be aiming for 2 marks a point, and I think, as we've said on other answers, let's make sure we pass and we get at least 7. That would be the prudent approach. So from our brainstorm, we were able to develop 10 good points, which we could easily, hopefully, craft 7 points, which is a pass. If we were to develop these points, or even maybe use all 10 points, we're well into a pretty high score zone. So, you know, have confidence that this question is very within your capabilities, as long as you take the advice given. Let's look at how these brainstormed bullet points could be developed into an exam style answer then. Looking at this, looking at the memo, following the format, it's to Oliver. I think we would begin by, you know, thinking about professionalism. Oliver here has tried his best he voluntarily did this project initiation document, so thank him. But think about how you'd behave in the workplace. I don't think it would be appropriate to be scolding the guy. He was only trying. No one's trained him to do this, and he was trying to help out. So the way in which we talk to him is in a more coaching kind of way than a scolding way. And we say, key emissions, thank you very much, but the key emissions might be the purpose of the project. Yeah, so it didn't state the purpose, but we didn't just leave it at purpose. We talked about, yes, we need to do a purpose, so an answer would say that, but why? Well, stating a clear purpose will ensure that the ultimate focus remains during the whole of the project. If you've got a purpose, it's a benchmark that we can look at. And then we took it even further again by saying, for example, the purpose might be to build a resilient road that can be driven easily. So again, putting it in the context of what's going on here. Yeah, really important. And it's also important to show professionalism here, that the guy was trying. And I think on the note of professional skills marks, I think you should maybe spend a little bit of time to look at the official answer in a little more detail. In there you'll find the professional skills marking grid, which will give clarity on the difference between an answer that would get 0 professional skills marks and an answer that would get full professional skills marks. So worth having a look at that. Let's have a look at the key takeaways from attempting this question. I think the first thing for us to be aware of is it's not technical knowledge that will get the marks, but it's the application of that technical knowledge that's important. So here, if you just were regurgitating everything you know what a project initiation document contains, it wouldn't have got any credit. You needed to use that knowledge to assess and synthesize from the case the information given in the exhibit, and therefore conclude what was missing and what might you want to have in addition to what was there. So always don't just regurgitate it, apply it in the context. Also, I think to score full professional marks on this question, you needed to also show professionalism. And the context of what was happening was you were communicating to a junior member of staff. They'd written this project initiation document. They tried their best. They obviously didn't write a great one, but they didn't do what they did on purpose. And if you think about how we would behave in the real workplace, well, we should have taken an almost kind of coaching role on board rather than an aggressive critical role. So think about how you'd behave in the workplace to guide how you're going to answer in the exam. As always, we need to maintain strict control of time, so we need to be writing down start and finish and thinking about marks per minute. And also we need to be very aware of how many marks we need and make sure we deliver an answer in accordance with the marks awarded. Finally, this is a series of question debriefs, and you'll find lots of other fantastic resources to help you with your exam preparation at accaglobal.com. Have a look at the examiner's report where he talks about question 2, and also have a look at the answer that you will find there. Just remember that the answer is designed for tutorial purposes and is much more than will be expected from a student in the real exam. It's also worth having a look at the article on the 10 things to learn from the September 2018 exam paper, which shares many of the sentiments I've shared with you here on this question. I hope this has been useful for you, and I'd like to wish you all the very best with your future studies.